The champagne hits cold. Mariel Acri feels the liquid cascade over her forehead, her cheeks, her pressed black suit jacket. The one she bought on clearance 3 months ago because it made her look like she belonged somewhere. The ballroom erupts. Laughter rolls in waves across marble floors and crystal chandeliers. She keeps her eyes shut, jaw locked tight, shoulders pulled inward like a turtle retreating into its shell. This isn't shock. This is survival. She's learned that closing your eyes makes humiliation pass faster. Lysandra Kellen tilts the champagne bottle higher, blonde hair catching the golden light, burgundy dress clinging to her frame like armor. Her laugh is theatrical, designed for the cameras flashing near the stage. Beside her, Casper Verrill slaps his thigh, tattooed fingers glinting with rings that cost more than Mariel's yearly rent. His orange shirt peeks from beneath his designer suit as he leans forward, grinning like a predator watching something bleed. The third member of their circle, Davin Marrow, stands back with his arms crossed, smirking in that quiet way powerful people do when they're confident no consequences will ever touch them. The Hampton Crest Grand Hall smells like expensive perfume and greed. 200 guests fill the space, some laughing along, others looking away uncomfortably, pretending they didn't see what just happened. Mariel's breath comes shallow. Her hands ball into fists at her sides. Something inside her cracks, not loudly, not visibly, but sharply like ice splitting under pressure. Have you ever been in a room where everyone watched you suffer and did nothing? Where people treated you like you were less than human because they believed their money gave them permission? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Rain streaks the floor-to-ceiling windows. Thunder rumbles somewhere distant. Mariel opens her eyes slowly, champagne dripping from her eyelashes. The event manager, a thin woman with a clipboard, rushes forward, not to help Mariel, but to assess the mess on the floor. She hisses under her breath about stains and insurance. Mariel's uniform name tag hangs crooked now, soaked through. Staff, replaceable, invisible. But near the back of the ballroom, someone sees her. Rowan Halden stands motionless, his expression carved from stone. His phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out, glances at the screen, and his entire body goes rigid. His jaw tightens. His eyes narrow. For a man known across Wall Street for his control, this moment feels volcanic, like watching a dam about to burst. Mariel doesn't notice him. She's too focused on breathing, on staying upright, on not giving them the satisfaction of seeing her run. Lysandra hands the empty champagne bottle to a server like she's just finished a toast. Casper leans toward Davin and says something that makes both men laugh. The crowd begins to settle, turning their attention back to the stage, where a presentation screen glows with corporate logos and financial projections. Somewhere above the noise, a voice announces the evening's main event. The signing of a $2 billion deal. Investors lean forward. Cameras swivel toward the stage. This is what everyone came for. The celebration of an acquisition that will reshape the future of digital security across the northeastern United States. The Vesper Circle has spent months positioning themselves as the masterminds behind this deal. Tonight is their victory lap. Mariel turns toward the staff hallway, champagne dripping onto the marble with every step. Her shoes squeak. Her hands tremble. She tells herself this is just another night, just another humiliation in a lifetime of being overlooked. But something feels different. The air tastes electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Rowan watches her disappear through the side door. He looks back at his phone. The email subject line reads, "Milestone reached. Ownership transfer authorized." Below it, one name glows on the screen. Mariel Acri. 30 minutes earlier, Mariel stood in the service corridor, adjusting her suit jacket for the 4th time. The fabric pulled tight across her shoulders, cheap material pretending to be expensive. She checked her reflection in the steel side of a catering cart. Neat enough, invisible enough. That was the goal. Be present but unnoticed. Do the work and disappear. The ballroom buzzed with arrivals. Women in gowns that cost more than Mariel's car glided past. Men in tailored suits spoke in low voices about markets and mergers. Mariel carried trays of champagne glasses, weaving between clusters of wealth, keeping her eyes down. She'd worked enough of these events to know the rules. Don't make eye contact. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't exist unless needed. Lysandra Kellen arrived first, flanked by two assistants who looked more like bodyguards. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, her burgundy dress cut to show just enough skin to be dangerous. She scanned the room like a general surveying a battlefield. When her eyes landed on Mariel, they passed right through her. No recognition, no acknowledgement. Just empty space. Casper Verrill came next, laughing too loud, his tattooed hand gripping the shoulder of an older investor. His energy filled the room like smoke, thick and suffocating. He moved like someone who'd never been told no in his entire life. Davin Marrow followed quietly, his tailored navy suit perfectly pressed, his expression calm and unreadable. He was the quietest of the three, but Mariel had learned over the years that quiet people in power were the most dangerous. The event manager pulled Mariel aside near the stage. Her voice was clipped, efficient. Keep the champagne flowing. Stay near the Vesper Circles table. They're the stars tonight. Make sure they have everything they need. Mariel nodded. She'd heard this speech a dozen times. Be useful. Be invisible. Don't mess up. She carried a fresh tray toward their table. Lysandra was mid-laugh, her hand resting possessively on Casper's forearm. Davin leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of whiskey, watching the room like a chess player calculating his next 10 moves. They didn't acknowledge Mariel as she set down fresh glasses. To them, she was furniture. Functional. Forgettable. But then Casper noticed her. His eyes flicked up, catching hers for half a second. A grin spread across his face. He leaned toward Lysandra and whispered something. Lysandra's laugh rang out sharp and cruel. Mariel felt her stomach tighten. She knew that look. She'd seen it before, the look predators get when they spot something they can break just for fun. She turned to leave, but Casper's voice followed her. Hey, you. Mariel stopped. Her hands gripped the empty tray. She turned slowly. Casper gestured toward the champagne bottles stacked near the bar. Bring one over here. The expensive stuff. Mariel walked to the bar, her pulse hammering in her ears. The bartender handed her a chilled bottle. Dom Perignon, the label said. She carried it back carefully, setting it on their table with both hands. That's when Lysandra stood. She picked up the bottle, her eyes glittering with something cold and calculated. Casper leaned forward, grinning. Davin watched, arms crossed, that smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Lysandra tilted the bottle. Champagne arced through the air, and the ballroom erupted. Their CO lifted his glass moments later, his voice booming across the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate the acquisition of the most revolutionary technology of our generation, a deal worth over $2 billion. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed, investors toasted. But the license they celebrated wasn't theirs. It was hers. Mariel stumbles into the staff hallway, champagne still dripping from her hair onto the tile floor. Her hands shake as she pulls paper towels from the dispenser near the service elevator. The cheap fabric of her suit clings to her skin, cold and heavy. She presses the towels against her face, her neck, her sleeves, but the liquid just spreads. The smell of expensive alcohol mixes with the sharp scent of industrial cleaner. The hallway is empty except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant rumble of applause from the ballroom. Mariel leans against the wall, her eyes burning, not from tears, but from the acidic sting of champagne. She breathes in through her nose, out through her mouth, the way she learned in foster care when panic threatened to swallow her whole. The event manager appears at the end of the hall, clipboard in hand, heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. Her expression is tight, annoyed. Akri, what are you doing back here? She doesn't wait for an answer. You need to get back out there. The VIP section needs. I just need a minute, Mariel says quietly. Her voice sounds hollow even to her own ears. The event manager's jaw tightens. Stop being dramatic. Clean yourself up and get back to work. This is a professional event, not a therapy session. Mariel nods slowly. She pushes off the wall, crumpling the damp paper towels in her fist. The event manager turns and disappears back toward the ballroom without another word. Mariel stands there, alone again, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But then footsteps echo from the opposite direction. Slow, deliberate, expensive shoes on tile. Mariel looks up. A man steps into the hallway. Tall, mid-40s, dark suit tailored so perfectly it looks like it was grown on him. His face is calm, but his eyes burn with something Mariel can't name. Fury, maybe, or something colder, more controlled. She doesn't recognize him, but something in her chest tightens. He doesn't look at her the way the others did. Not with dismissal, not with cruelty. He looks at her like she matters. Back in the ballroom, Rowan Halden had been standing near the rear entrance when the champagne hit. He'd seen the entire thing. Watched Lysandra tilt the bottle. Watched Casper's grin spread wide. Watched Mariel close her eyes and endure. And then his phone buzzed. The email was automatic, triggered by a legal clause buried in a trust document filed 7 years ago. Rowan had been waiting for this notification for months. He knew it was coming. He'd helped design the system himself. But seeing it arrive at the exact moment Mariel stood drenched in champagne, humiliated, alone, invisible to everyone, ignited something in him he rarely allowed himself to feel. Rage, pure, cold, lethal. He slipped his phone back into his pocket and walked toward the staff hallway. He didn't rush. Rushing drew attention, but his jaw was locked so tight his teeth ached. Now he stands in the hallway, watching Mariel try to dry herself with wadded paper towels. She looks up at him, confused, wary. Her shoulders are still curled inward, defensive. She doesn't know who he is. She has no idea that he's been watching over her life for years. Quietly paying hospital bills she thought were covered by insurance, ensuring she kept her jobs when landlords tried to evict her, protecting her from a distance because he made a promise to a dying man. Rowan takes a breath. When he speaks, his voice is low, steady, weighted with something that makes Mariel's pulse spike. Mariel Acri? She freezes. Her name. He said her name, even though she's never met him. Mariel's hand grips the damp paper towels tighter. Her eyes narrow, slightly, instinct kicking in. The kind of wariness you develop when life teaches you that strangers knowing your name is rarely a good thing. Do I know you? Rowan doesn't smile. He doesn't soften his expression. He just holds her gaze, steady and unblinking. No, but I knew your father. The words hit her like a punch. Her father. She hasn't heard anyone mention him in years. Most people don't even know she had a father. She grew up in foster care after he died, bouncing between homes, learning early that family was a word other people got to use. Rowan gestures down the hallway, away from the ballroom noise. Walk with me. It's not an order. It's a request. But there's something in his tone, something that feels like gravity, pulling her forward even though every survival instinct tells her to stay put. Mariel glances back toward the ballroom entrance. The event manager's voice echoes faintly, barking orders at another staff member. The applause swells again. Someone is giving a speech. She looks back at Rowan. He hasn't moved. He's waiting, patient, like he has all the time in the world, even though the tension in his jaw suggests otherwise. Mariel drops the paper towels into a trash bin and follows him. They walk in silence down a corridor lined with framed photographs of previous events. Politicians shaking hands, celebrities cutting ribbons, investors holding oversized checks. Their footsteps echo against the polished floor. Mariel's suit jacket is still damp, clinging uncomfortably to her back. She can feel her heartbeat in her throat. Rowan stops in front of a private conference room, tucked at the end of the hall. The door is unmarked, designed to blend into the wall. He pushes it open and gestures for her to enter first. Mariel hesitates for half a second, then steps inside. The room is small, windowless, lit by recessed lights that cast everything in soft white. A single table sits in the center, and on that table, perfectly centered, sits a manila folder. Rowan closes the door behind them. The sound of the ballroom disappears completely, swallowed by soundproofing that makes the silence feel heavy. Mariel stares at the folder. It's thin, maybe 20 pages at most, but something about it makes her stomach twist. Rowan moves to the opposite side of the table. He doesn't touch the folder. He just stands there, watching her, his expression unreadable. Before I explain, I need you to understand something. His voice is quieter now, almost gentle. Your father was one of the most brilliant engineers I've ever met. He built something revolutionary, and he made sure it couldn't be stolen. Mariel's throat feels dry. What does that have to do with me? Rowan's eyes flicker with something, pity, maybe, or regret. Everything. He reaches across the table and slides the folder toward her. Mariel stares at it. Her hands are still trembling slightly, whether from the cold champagne or the adrenaline. She doesn't know. She looks up at Rowan. He nods once, a silent permission. She opens the folder. The first page is a legal document. Dense text. Official seals. She scans the words, her eyes catching on phrases she doesn't fully understand. Exclusive license rights. Quantum layer authentication protocol. Estimated valuation. And then her eyes land on one line, printed in bold at the top of the page. Sole owner, Mariel Denise Acri. Her breath catches. Her vision blurs for a second. She blinks hard, forcing herself to focus. Below the ownership line, another number jumps out at her. $2.04 billion. Her knees buckle. She grabs the edge of the table to steady herself. Rowan moves slightly, ready to catch her if she falls, but she locks her legs and stays upright. Her voice comes out hoarse, barely a whisper. This has to be a mistake. Rowan shakes his head slowly. No mistake. Mariel flips through the next few pages. More legal language. Signatures she doesn't recognize. Dates that go back years. Her father's name appears again and again. Dr. Leonard Acri. She remembers him vaguely. Quiet. Obsessive about his work. Always sketching diagrams on napkins. Muttering about security protocols she didn't understand. He died when she was 12. Heart attack, they said. Sudden. No warning. She looks up at Rowan, her hands shaking so hard the papers rattle. I don't understand. Why didn't anyone tell me? Rowan's expression softens just slightly. Your father hid it. On purpose. He knew people would come after it. So he buried the ownership in a trust, sealed until a specific event triggered the transfer. Mariel's voice cracks. What event? Rowan's jaw tightens. Tonight. He told her, everything you think you know is about to change. And then he slid the folder toward her. Mariel's fingers trace the embossed seal on the document. Her father's signature sits at the bottom of the page, slightly rushed, the way she remembers him writing when he was excited about something. She swallows hard, her throat tight. The numbers blur. $2 billion. $2 billion. The words don't connect to anything real in her mind. She's never had more than $300 in her bank account at once. Rowan leans forward slightly, his hands flat on the table. Your father created a quantum layer authentication protocol. It's the foundation for securing encrypted data across government systems, financial institutions, and corporate networks. Whoever controls the license controls access to the next decade of digital security infrastructure. Mariel looks up at him, her voice barely steady. And you're saying I control it? Yes. But she stops. Her brain feels like it's moving through mud. I don't know anything about technology. I can barely use my phone. You don't need to. Rowan's voice is calm, steady, like he's explaining something simple. The license isn't about what you can build. It's about what you own. And what you own is the legal right to authorize or deny access to the protocol. Mariel sets the papers down carefully, like they might shatter. Her hands are still trembling. She presses them flat against the table to steady herself. Why did my father tell me? Why hide this? Rowan exhales slowly. Because he was betrayed. The people he worked with, investors, partners, corporate backers, they try to force him out of his own invention. They want to take the license, rewrite the contracts, erase his name from the patents. Your father saw it coming. So he transferred ownership into a trust under your name and locked it behind a legal trigger. What trigger? The announcement of a completed acquisition. Rowan's eyes harden. Which happened tonight, in that ballroom. When the Vesper Circle celebrated a deal they believed they owned. Mariel's stomach drops. The champagne, the laughter, the cameras flashing while Lysandra poured a bottle over her head like she was garbage. They think they bought the license. They've been telling investors that for months. They've signed agreements. They've made promises. They've built their entire strategy around controlling this protocol. Rowan pauses, but the license was never theirs to sell. It was always yours. Mariel's breath comes faster now. She looks down at the document again, at her name printed in bold letters. So what happens now? Rowan straightens. Now you decide what to do with it. I don't, she stops. Her hands ball into fists. I don't know how to do any of this. I work events. I serve drinks. Her voice cracks. I'm nobody. Rowan's expression shifts. For the first time, something almost resembling warmth enters his eyes. You were nobody to them because they needed you to be. But the moment that champagne hit your head, the moment they celebrated their deal in front of cameras and investors, they locked themselves into a legal trap. They publicly claimed ownership of something that belongs to you. And that makes them vulnerable. Mariel looks up at him. Vulnerable to what? To the truth. Silence fills the room. The hum of the air conditioning is the only sound. Mariel's mind races. She thinks about every humiliation she's endured. Every time someone treated her like she didn't matter. Every time she swallowed her anger because speaking up only made things worse. She thinks about Lysandra's laugh, Casper's grin, Davin's smirk. The way they looked at her, like she was an insect they could crush for entertainment. She whispers, almost to herself, there has to be a mistake. Rowan leans forward, his voice low and steady. No, the only mistake was theirs. Rowan pulls a tablet from his briefcase and sets it on the table beside the folder. The screen glows to life, displaying a web of documents, emails, contracts, financial transfers. Mariel stares at the network of lines connecting names she recognizes from tonight. Lysandra Kellen, Casper Verrill, Davin Marrow, the Vesper Circle. They've been planning this for 18 months, Rowan says, his finger tracing a timeline on the screen. Your father's former partners sold information about the protocol to investors before the license was even available. They promised control. They collected advance payments. They built an entire acquisition strategy around technology they didn't own. Mariel leans closer. The numbers on the screen make her dizzy. Millions in pre-commitments. Contracts signed with Fortune 500 companies. Government agencies waiting for access. All of it built on a lie. They forged documents, Rowan continues. His voice is calm, but there's an edge underneath, like ice cracking. Created fake ownership papers. Bribed officials to push through approvals. They thought your father's death erased the original ownership trail. They didn't know about the trust. Mariel's hands gripped the edge of the table. So, they've been stealing from me this entire time? Attempting to, Rowan swipes to another screen. But they never actually secure the license. They just convinced everyone they had. Tonight was supposed to finalize everything. The public announcement, the investor celebration, the media coverage. They wanted to create so much momentum that even if legal questions arose, they'd be too powerful to stop. Mariel thinks about the champagne pouring over her head. The laughter, the cameras. They were celebrating something they don't own. Exactly. Rowan's jaw tightens. And now they've done it publicly, in front of witnesses, on camera, with signed statements to investors promising delivery of a license they can't provide. The weight of it settles over Mariel like a blanket. These people, the ones who humiliated her, who treated her like she was nothing, they've built an empire on fraud. And she's the only person who can prove it. Rowan closes the tablet. The moment you claim ownership, their entire structure collapses. Investors will demand refunds. Partners will file lawsuits. Government contracts will be voided. The Vesper Circle won't just lose money. They'll lose everything. Mariel's voice comes out quieter than she intends. What if I don't claim it? What if I just let them have it? Rowan's eyes lock onto hers. Then they win. They humiliate you, steal from you, and walk away richer than ever. And they'll do it to someone else. And someone else after that. Because people like them only stop when they're forced to. Mariel looks down at the document. Her father's signature. Her name. $2 billion. She thinks about every time she was invisible. Every time she swallowed anger because fighting back seemed impossible. Every time she told herself that survival was enough. But survival isn't justice. Rowan's voice cuts through her thoughts. They celebrated too early. Mariel looks up. What? Tomorrow, Rowan says, his tone shifting. Harder now, sharper. You walk into the boardroom, and everything they built collapses. Mariel's hands won't stop shaking. She presses them flat against her thighs, willing them to steady, but the adrenaline pumping through her veins won't listen. Rowan stands across from her, waiting, patient, like he knows she needs time to process what he's just said. Walk into the boardroom, face the people who poured champagne on her. Claim ownership of a $2 billion license. The words feel impossible, like try to hold water in her hands. I can't do this, she whispers. Her voice cracks. I don't know how to be that person. Rowan moves around the table slowly, stopping a few feet away from her. He doesn't invade her space, but his presence feels solid, grounding. You already are that person. You've been surviving in a world designed to keep you down. You've endured things that would have broken most people. The only difference now is that you have proof of your power. Mariel looks up at him. They'll destroy me. They have lawyers, money, connections. And you have a law. Rowan's voice is steady, unshakable. The one thing money can't rewrite when the truth is documented. Your ownership is ironclad. Your father made sure of that. Every signature, every seal, every legal protection, he built it to withstand exactly this kind of attack. Mariel's throat tightens. She thinks about her father. The quiet man who died when she was 12. The man she barely knew. He'd done this. He'd protected her from a future he knew was coming. And she'd spent years thinking he'd left her with nothing. Why didn't he tell me? Her voice breaks. Why let me think I was alone? Rowan exhales slowly. Because telling you would have put you in danger. The people hunting this license would have used you to get to him. He kept you safe the only way he knew how. By keeping you hidden. A tear slips down Mariel's cheek before she can stop it. She wipes it away quickly, angry at herself for crying. But Rowan doesn't look at her with pity. He looks at her with something else. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Like he sees the fight in her even when she can't see it herself. I've spent my whole life being told I don't matter, Mariel says quietly. Foster homes, dead-end jobs, people like them. She gestures toward the door, toward the ballroom where the Vesper Circle is still celebrating. I don't know how to be powerful. Rowan steps closer. His voice drops, quieter now, but weighted with something that makes Mariel's pulse slow. Power isn't loud. It's not cruelty. It's not the champagne they pour when they think no one can touch them. He pauses. Real power is showing up when everyone expects you to disappear. It's standing in the truth when lies are easier. It's choosing justice even when fear tells you to run. Mariel meets his eyes. Something shifts inside her. Not loud, not dramatic, but sharp and clear like a door unlocking. She straightens her shoulders. What happens tomorrow? Rowan's expression doesn't change, but there's a flicker of approval in his eyes. I've arranged a private meeting with the Vesper Circle's board. 9 a.m. You'll walk in with the ownership documents. I'll be beside you the entire time. We'll present the truth. And their lawyers will confirm what they already know. They don't own the license. You do. And then the collapse begins. Rowan's voice is cold now, clinical. Investors will panic. Media will swarm. Partners will distance themselves. By noon, their reputations will be in ruins. By evening, lawsuits will be filed. Everything they built on lies will crumble. Mariel's heart pounds. She thinks about Lysandra's laugh, Casper's grin, Davin's smirk. The way they looked at her like she was nothing. She asked softly, why me? Why now? Rowan holds her gaze. Because quiet people make the loudest justice. The city skyline glows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Rowan's office. Mariel sits in a leather chair that costs more than her car, watching him move between file cabinets and computer screens. It's past midnight now. The ballroom event ended hours ago. but she hasn't gone home. She can't. Not yet. Rowan sets a stack of documents in front of her. These are the contracts the Vesper Circle signed with investors. Read them. Understand what they promised. Mariel flips through the pages. Legal language swims in front of her tired eyes, but certain phrases jump out. Exclusive access. Guaranteed delivery. Binding commitment. Every page is signed by Lysandra, Casper, or Davin. Every page promises something they can't deliver. They're going to say this is a mistake, Mariel says. They'll claim they didn't know. They'll try. Rowan leans against the desk, arms crossed. But ignorance isn't a defense when you've signed contracts worth billions. They had a legal obligation to verify ownership before making promises. They didn't. That's fraud. Mariel sets the documents down. Her hands are steadier now, the shock wearing off, replaced by something colder. Focus. Determination. What do I say when I walk in? Nothing at first. Rowan's voice is calm, instructional. Let me introduce you. Let them see you. They'll recognize you from the event. They'll remember the champagne. And they'll underestimate you. And then you place the ownership documents on the table. You look at them, and you say, this license belongs to me. It always has. Mariel rehearses the words in her mind. Her voice. Her power. She imagines walking into that boardroom, seeing their faces shift from confusion to recognition to panic. Rowan moves to the window, looking out at the city. They're going to try to intimidate you. They'll raise their voices. They'll threaten legal action. They'll offer you money to walk away quietly. What do? You stay calm. You don't argue. You don't defend yourself. You just state the truth. He turns to face her. The law is on your side. The documents are legitimate. Their fraud is documented. All you have to do is exist. Your presence alone destroys them. Mariel stands. Her legs feel stronger now. She walks to the window beside Rowan, looking out at the lights below. Somewhere in that city, Lysandra is probably asleep in her penthouse. Casper is probably celebrating at some exclusive club. Davin is probably drafting press releases about their successful acquisition. They have no idea what's coming. If you're still watching, hit like, because the moment they underestimated her became the moment everything turned. Rowan's phone buzzes. He glances at it, then looks at Mariel. The board meeting is confirmed. 9 a.m. conference room on the 42nd floor of the Mercer building. Mariel's stomach tightens. Less than 9 hours. What if I freeze? What if I can't speak? Then I'll speak for you. Rowan's voice is steady. But you won't freeze. You've survived worse than a boardroom full of rich people. This is just one more fight. And this time, you're holding all the power. Mariel nods slowly. She looks down at her reflection in the glass. The champagne is long gone, but she can still feel the weight of it. The humiliation, the laughter, the moment she realized she was nothing to them. But she isn't nothing. She never was. The sun rises somewhere beyond the skyline, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gold. Rowan says quietly, it's time, and Mariel walks through the boardroom door. The conference room smells like expensive leather and fear. Mariel steps inside, Rowan at her side, and every head turns. Lysandra sits at the far end of the table, blonde hair pulled back tight, burgundy blazer sharp enough to cut. Casper leans back in his chair, tattooed fingers drumming against the armrest, his expression caught between confusion and amusement. Davin stands near the window, arms crossed, that same calculating smirk playing at his lips. Their lawyers flank them. 3 men in identical dark suits, briefcases open, tablets glowing. The Vesper Circle CEO, a silver-haired man named Garrett Voss, sits at the head of the table. His eyes narrow as Mariel enters. What is this? Lysandra's voice is sharp, dismissive. She looks at Rowan. We agreed to a private meeting. We didn't agree to staff. Mariel's jaw tightens, but she doesn't respond. Rowan gestures to an empty chair. She sits. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers interlaced to keep them from shaking. Rowan remains standing beside her, a silent wall of authority. This meeting, Rowan says calmly, is about the license you celebrated last night. The quantum layer authentication protocol you publicly announced as acquired property. Garrett waves a hand dismissively. We've already finalized that deal. The paperwork is signed. This meeting is unnecessary. Rowan doesn't blink. The paperwork you signed is worthless. You don't own the license. The room goes silent. Casper stops drumming his fingers. Davin turns from the window. Lysandra's smile freezes. One of the lawyers speaks up, his tone condescending. Mr. Halden, I assure you our due diligence was thorough. We have verified ownership through multiple channels. You verified fraud. Rowan's voice cuts through the room like a blade. He nods to Mariel. She reaches into the folder on her lap and pulls out the ownership documents. Her hands are steady now. She places them in the center of the table. Lysandra leans forward, scanning the first page. Her expression shifts, confusion, then disbelief, then something colder. Casper grabs the document, flipping through it quickly. Davin moves closer, reading over his shoulder. Garrett's voice is tight. What is this? Rowan answers. Legal proof that the quantum layer authentication protocol is owned by Mariel Acri. It has been since her father's death 7 years ago. The ownership was held in trust, triggered by the public announcement of acquisition, which you made last night. One of the lawyers snatches the documents, his eyes scanning frantically. His face goes pale. He looks up at Garrett. These are legitimate. Lysandra stands abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. We've invested millions. We have contracts with investors, government agencies, based on a license you don't own. Mariel's voice is quiet, but it fills the room. Every eye turns to her. She looks at Lysandra. You poured champagne on me last night. You laughed. You treated me like I was nothing. Lysandra's mouth opens, then closes. For the first time, recognition flashes across her face. The staff member, the woman they humiliated, the nobody. Mariel's voice doesn't rise. She doesn't need to yell. This license belongs to me. It always has. Casper slams his hand on the table. This is blackmail. You're trying to extort us. No. Rowan's voice is ice. This is the law. You publicly claimed ownership of property that belongs to someone else. You signed contracts promising delivery. You collected payments. That's fraud. And every investor you lied to will demand accountability. Garrett's face is red now. We'll fight this. We have the best legal team in the country. And they'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you now. Rowan leans forward, his hands flat on the table. You lose. The documents are ironclad. The ownership is verified. The moment you announce that deal, you trapped yourselves. Comment justice if you believe arrogance always comes with consequences. Davin finally speaks, his voice quiet, controlled. What do you want? Money? A settlement? Mariel looks at him. She thinks about every moment she was dismissed. Every time she was treated as disposable. Every humiliation she swallowed because speaking up seemed pointless. I want what's mine. Lysandra's hands tremble as she grips the back of her chair. This has to be fake. There's no way. Mariel looks her in the eyes. You poured champagne on the wrong woman. The collapse happens faster than anyone expected. By noon, the first lawsuit is filed. By 2 p.m., 3 major investors withdraw their commitments. By 4, the media picks up the story. Headlines screaming about fraud, fake acquisitions, corporate betrayal. The Vesper Circle's stock price drops 23% in a single afternoon. Mariel watches it unfold from Rowan's office. The city stretched out below her like a board game she's finally learned to play. News alerts light up his tablet. Financial networks dissect the scandal in real time. Lysandra's face appears on screen, her expression tight, her lawyers flanking her as she refuses to comment. Casper's social media accounts go dark. Davin's carefully crafted reputation begins to crack. Rowan sets a cup of tea in front of Mariel. She wraps her hands around it, feeling the warmth seep into her palms. What happens to them now? Legal battles, investor lawsuits, possible criminal charges for fraud. Rowan sits across from her. Their companies will survive, but their reputations won't. And they'll spend years trying to rebuild what they destroyed in one night. Mariel takes a sip of tea. It's bitter, but she doesn't mind. And me? Rowan's expression softens. You decide what comes next. The license is yours. You can sell it, license it, build a company around it. Whatever you choose, you'll have resources, legal protection, and people who will take you seriously. Mariel looks out at the city. She thinks about her father, the man she barely knew, who spent his final years building a future for her. She thinks about the champagne, the laughter, the moment she realized she had a choice: stay invisible or demand justice. I want to build something, she says quietly. Something my father will be proud of. Something that helps people who feel the way I felt. Powerless, invisible, forgotten. Rowan nods. Then we'll build it. Mariel's phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. We can make this right. Okay. She deletes it without responding. Rowan stands, moving to the window. There's something your father told me once before he died. He said, real power doesn't announce itself. It just is. And when the time comes, it reshapes everything. Mariel joins him at the window. Do you think he knew this would happen? I think he knew people like the Vesper Circle would always exist. And he wanted to make sure you'd be ready when they came for you. The sun sets over the city, casting long shadows across the skyline. Somewhere below, Lysandra is meeting with lawyers. Casper is trying to salvage investor relationships. Davin is calculating his next move. But Mariel isn't thinking about them anymore. She's thinking about tomorrow, about the foundation she'll build, about the people she'll help, about the quiet power that reshaped her life in a single night. Rowan's voice is soft. What do you want people to remember about this? Mariel smiles, small but genuine. That arrogance has a price. That cruelty leaves scars, and that the quiet ones always rise. Rowan opens the door for her, the hallway stretching out ahead, bright and full of possibility. He says the words that echo everything, the words that started it all. The moment they poured champagne on you, they signed their own downfall. Subscribe if you want more stories where the quiet ones rise. Turn on notifications so that you never miss a story that inspires. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Because every story of justice is also a story of hope. And hope is something we all need more of.